Julian Castro, Susan Del Percio, and David Jolly are back with me. Did you guys like that Dodger hat he was wearing as much as I did? I mean, I'm just saying, I was like, yes. Anyway, so Julian, Sanders also made a surprise appearance on stage at Coachella. He was greeted with massive cheers there as well. Why does he stir up such enthusiasm? And how can Democrats harness that? Or is it unique to Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's stirred up a lot of enthusiasm for quite a while now, right? Starting from when he ran in the 2016 presidential race, but also probably because for two reasons. Number one, right now, Democrats, the base is looking for Democrats to do something, to speak out, to do what Cory Booker did, just to show fight. And that's what Bernie Sanders has been all about for decades. And then secondly, I don't think there's anybody whose message more meets the moment on the Democratic side than Bernie Sanders. I mean, you have the embodiment of what he's been talking about in terms of an oligarchy with Musk and Trump's band of billionaires that are now in charge of the government and seemingly engaging in a scheme to benefit themselves in so many different ways. And so Bernie's message, I think, right now resonates with Americans of different stripes more than it ever has. And you're seeing that in the number of people getting out there to these events, like 36,000 yesterday in LA.
Huge. Susan, is Sanders right when he says that Trump and Musk are watching these rallies? I mean, there were the massive demonstrations last weekend. There are more planned for next weekend. Do they have an impact?
To some extent, they're getting the base motivated. That's great. But when I see fight oligarchy, I say, how? Tell them to do something, register to vote, whatever it is, go to town halls. There's no action with these rallies. And Senator Sanders has always been great at getting crowds. He's kept his initial base from 2016 engaged all of these years. But to what end? The other thing I would look at is if I'm the Democratic Party, and I'm not, so it's really not my place to say, but I would be wondering, is this the face of the Democrats going forward? Is this the party they want to be? Now, or is it a section of it? That's an interesting question, I think.
Yeah. So, David, Steve Bannon, of course, former chief White House strategist, again insisting Trump will run for and win a third term. Never mind, it would violate the Constitution. Here's what he told HBO's Bill Maher.
We have a team of people that are working. A team.
How can a team do something about that? What? I don't care if the team is 12 trillion people. The words are still the words.
We've had long odds before. You know what? And we've come out winning twice. And we're going to come out, we've got long odds on this. We're going to come out winning a third time. On the afternoon of the 20th of January 2029, he's going to be president of the United States.
Is anyone besides Bannon taking this seriously? Should we be?
I think we should be, and I think Donald Trump is taking it seriously. The interesting thing about how our federal elections are administered is they're actually administered by the states, by the secretaries of state at the state level. And so you could see a number of disqualifications for Donald Trump at the state level. So the question becomes, well, what is Steve Bannon referring to? How would they do this? Would it be a declaration of emergency from Donald Trump? Would it be martial law? Or would it be the one theory that apparently could work, which would be you flip the ticket, J.D. Vance runs at the top, he gets elected, resigns, Donald Trump moves back to the presidency? Here's the thing, as crazy as this all sounds, and I think many of us for the last several years thought, no way, this is the bridge too far. There's no way this could happen. Actually, I think we have to believe them when they say it. We have to believe that this is something they have the designs on, recognize there's a constitutional threat in the White House in Donald Trump, and recognize that they may indeed try to do this. We should prepare for that now.
I mean, Susan, at what point would you be concerned about Trump really trying to run for a third term? Never mind that he'd be rounding the corner to 83 when he was inaugurated. Is there anything that can be done now to put in any additional guardrails?
I don't think there's anything now. And frankly, I think the time to look at this and to question is right after the midterm elections, because we don't know what's going to happen. But if there's enough of a changeover, especially in the House, I think Donald Trump will have had plenty of this job, and he probably will check out. This is his 18 months. So I don't see it happening, but I agree with David. Be prepared. But I think we have a little bit more time.
Let me switch gears a bit, Julian. I want to ask you, after being court-ordered to provide updates on the man mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador, the Trump administration says that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is, quote, alive and secure in that facility. He is detained pursuant to the sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador. Why are they presenting this as if El Salvador is responsible for jailing him and that they can't get him back?
I mean, they're basically at this point playing games with the trial court and daring the Supreme Court to go further. If we've come to a moment where we're at the brink of a constitutional crisis, this is it, because they were ordered by the Supreme Court, the Trump administration, to facilitate the return of this man. And now they're saying, well, he's alive and secure, but they're not actually demonstrating how they're facilitating his return to the United States, something that it's very clear they could easily do. And so I would think that within the next 24, 48 hours that they're going to demonstrate that they have a plan to get him back to the United States. If not, I think that we have the first instance of a real constitutional showdown on our hands.
David, I'm giving you the last word on this. I mean, what's the posturing from the White House and the reality here?
There are some moments in American history that reflect the nation's soul more so than the nation's laws. And I think Pam Bondi would be wise to recognize this is one of those moments. Marco Rubio would. Donald Trump would be wise to recognize it. Chief Justice Roberts would be well suited to recognize it. There are perhaps constitutional theories that the administration is going to put forward, but in doing so, they're sacrificing the spirit of who we are as a country, and they are doing a moral wrong on the world stage. They should correct it.
Okay. David, Susan, Julian, great conversation. Thank you both, all three of you, actually, so much. Thanks.